friends. I am Rick, and this is your seat at the table. And I just wanted to share a little bit of this, that, and the other thing, and then we'll get on to the main subject of this particular video. I just recently got this yesterday. So some of y'all probably have already bought this, have had it a while. I don't know the exact year that they put it out. This is the printed version of the PDF you can buy from Drive-Thru RPG. If you're not familiar with that website, that little niche, I would definitely go visit it. Pretty much every game system you can think of that has something of value, at least I'm aware of anyway. They have stuff represented there, and you can buy this stuff for the PDF. PDF was about $15, $16, and I was able to get a printed version for about $35, which is actually a little bit cheaper than what these probably would have cost if I'd have bought them brand new when they came out, if assuming they were on the bookshelves at the stores and I'd noticed it, which is another thing. I don't know how much of this stuff makes it to the local bookstores on the smaller scale, to be honest, and this might be one of the reasons why it flew under my radar. I just wasn't seeing this stuff on the shelves. Warhammer, GW stuff just dominates the fantasy war tabletop wargaming niche anymore, at least in the local game stores that I occasionally frequent. Anyway, I've always wanted to have a bit more depth and understanding of the succession wars in general, and this is a beautiful book. I am looking forward to I have just barely touched it. I just started reading into it, so I've got a ways to go before I ever do a video on it. And I understand they also have a entry for the second succession war. I have not seen one for for a third succession war. I'm not saying that they haven't given some thought to creating it, but this is the the granddaddy of them. Prior to that, I picked this up last year, and basically the same way. I mean, this is a PDF printed version of the PDF, and I actually was lucked out. I got this fairly cheap secondhand. It looks brand new. I mean, honestly, the once again, technically the War of 3039 could easily be considered the fifth succession war if you want to go in that kind of categorization, although for whatever reasons the quote historians of the time chose not to call it the fifth succession war, and in part maybe perhaps because not all of the major participants or all the major houses were deeply in participating. It was mostly a FedCom versus the Draconis Combine, with a few bits of, compelling Confederation and Free Worlds League kind of tossed in. But anyway, this eventually I will get around to reviewing this. I literally have stacks of stuff over here I have yet to, get into. We're not just touching, sketching, scratching the surface on all things Battletech when it comes to material and subject matter. In addition to that, I'm also planning on doing yet another video today. I don't know which one of the ones I do today will be posted for this weekend. Generally, I try to do 2 or 3 videos at a time. This allows me to free up some weekend space. The weather is dodgy today, but it's supposed to get sunny and warm up tomorrow. It's a break, and I really want to get my garden started and get it going tomorrow. I also pulled a double shift on Wednesday. Not that you guys really care, but I put a 15-hour day in on Wednesday just so I could have today off completely. I told my boss when I was leaving yesterday, I'm shutting my phone off, so don't bother talk. Don't expect me in until Monday. So I've taken an extended weekend to get get a bunch of other necessity things dealt with and taken care of. Just the joys of home ownership and so on and so forth. We said I have a topic subject on why the fourth succession war was different from the first and second and third succession wars, what critical components made it so different. Anyway, and I'm also going to, at some point in the near future or medium future, we will get to Tamar Rising. This brings us into the current realm of the Ilkhan series. There's still so much material out there that I don't own, and this was fairly brand new publishing, so this is bought from Catalyst directly. So, and we're you know, lots and lots of good stuff to cover. And then one of the, my fan favorite supporters here, subscribers, and I'm sorry, I should have wrote your moniker down. A couple of you guys are quite proactive about comments, and we have some good discussions that go on the comment sections on a lot of these videos. More than happy to talk to anybody about BattleTech, whether I'm right or wrong. My opinions are always my opinions, and I'm always subject to somebody else's opinions, and perhaps being swayed over to the other side of a particular discussion. Anyway, he mentioned this gem. This is from the Fastest Days BattleTech Tactical Handbook. I also plan on doing a video on it just as a glaze over to get started. There's a bunch of interesting little extras in here. This is also would be considered at the time an advanced rule book. It was to step up the combat system and options and give us more ways to make the game even more interesting or fun or convoluted or complicated, depending on how you look at it. You want to talk about fog of war? They have rules for that in here, although it's called something else. We have some different kinds of new additional weapon systems that were being introduced after the just prior to the arrival of the clans, and at the very beginning of the first year of the clan invasion, where innovation and desperation kind of came together, which has a tendency to happen in times of war. So there's a lot of good stuff in here, even though it is fairly thin as the books go. There's not gob amount of stuff in it. It also has an introduction to a different system for the points buy-in system that a lot of people are favoring today on how they set up their units. Like I said, I've got plenty of opinions on these. I've set them on there a number of times. My intentions is down the road in the next few months is to do a opinionated version of the point system as I understood it and as I understand it now, and its advantages, its disadvantages, and etc. So anyway, that's not what we're here for. That's not what you're really tuning into. What you want to talk about is the Kell Hounds. We are talking about one of the, next to the Wolf's Dragoons, probably the most iconic mercenary command in the Inner Sphere is the Kell Hounds. And they were formed from a pair of brothers who inherited some money from some wealthy. They're of the Steiner nobility, so they have nobility connections. It's the classical "how did my merc unit get started? I got a rich uncle" story. But they entered from their earliest days into the current incarnations. There's still a version of the Kell Hounds in the Inner Sphere and in some form of function. One of the earliest encounters, the Kell Hounds are responsible for not saving Ion Davan. He died at the hands of Yoriagi Kurita, and I might be butchering his name, but they prevented the Draconis Combine troops from taking Ion's body and taking it home and parading it through Luthien. This earned them a lot of gratitude from Hans Davion personally. They're also cousins. The Kells are cousins of Katrina Steiner, and so their families are interlinked, and they're very lots of interesting stuff and stories. There's a number of novels where they are involved in. There's also their descendants are throughout the story, especially during the Fourth Succession War and the Clan Wars. They're elements of the Kells are deep entrenched. The word I'm looking for is just on the top of my tongue, but I'm just not coming out. The Felon Wolf, for example, is a Kell. I mean, just saying. So let's dig into it a little bit. I bought this book for a whopping $8. $8, man. Look at, if you can zoom in, you want to zoom in, $8, Kell Hounds. And this was produced in 1988, 3 years after I graduated high school. Shows you how old I am. So we got our Introduction. Few believe the Kell Hounds mercenary regiment survived more than 6 months when the young brothers Morgan and Patrick Kell began to organize the unit in 3010. With ample financing and judgment beyond their years, the Kells hired the best mercenaries on Glacier and proved the skeptics wrong. Kell Hounds went on to become the most respected and feared units in the inner sphere, terrorizing periphery pirates and becoming such a thorn against the Draconis Combine that the coordinator Takashi Kurita grew obsessed with their destruction. The Kell Hounds were there on Mallory's world when Iron Davion died to save his men. They became stuff of legend after Morgan Kell and Uriagi Kurita dueled in a pivotal battle. The mystical nature of that battle had such a profound effect on Morgan Kell that he dismembered his regiment and joined a monastery. The Kell Hounds survived. The death of Patrick Kell on Styx in 3027 again tested the Kell Hounds. Morgan Kell returned from exile and rebuilt the unit, which continues to grow stronger. So, we're not going to go into deep history on it, or because there's, as you can see, there's a lot to these guys. There's a lot of stories. This is how I wish I'd seen more unit source books. There's so many house and mercenary commands out there that deserve their own dedicated overview. Some of them are hit or miss. Some of the very beginning early ones, they were testing the field. They were trying to get their feet. The writers and designers of the early days of FASA were not quite 100% sure where they wanted to be. McKinnon's Raiders, great. It's a good supplement. I did a video on it. Once again, though, it should have been a bit more deep. They should have included the entire regiment, because that regiment is part of an iconic House Davion force, and it deserved a bit more representation. It's like the element we have from McCarran's Armored Cavalry. It's only focusing on one regiment. It really does not carry much in the way of unit history, overall command history and structure, and that it could. It could have been devoted to McCarran's Armored Cavalry in general, and with a highlighted of. So I'm just pointing out that that's some of those personal opinions I have on this. So we got the brief history, Galatia, where their uncle Katrina's husband passed away, and when he died, he bequeathed to his nephews enough cash to form a regiment and to get them on their feet. And that's how they got their start. And so they went and they had the means to do so. So they went and they hired the best mercenaries they could find, and put together a very iconic unit that was from the get-go, had some advantages. They also don't talk about in personal general, but it comes up in the novels that Morgan and Patrick Kell are also members of a secret organization in the Laren Commonwealth called Heimdall. It is a fraternity. It's like a fraternity / political movement that's whole purpose was basically to keep the Steiner family on the right path, and to protect people against excessive use of certain elements within the LIC, the Lyran Intelligence Service, specifically loci, because it has been established that down through the centuries, different archons have applied different means and different force, and sometimes some pretty nasty ways. And loci has been given, and depending on who's in charge, a little bit too much leniency, too much authority to do the bidding of the archon. And what they're trying to do is prevent things. They don't want the Laren Commonwealth to become another compelling confederation in the leadership role of things. So it's like you get where I'm going with this. Anyway, so we get the raid on Castor. Go to Hell Heroes. Rendezvous with defeat. Assigned to the garrison of the agricultural planet Mara against the occasional raids from the Draconis Combine. The Kell Hounds arrived there in February 3013. Things have been quiet for some time. Troop buildups in Dirium military district had Prince Ion Davion concerned. Fears were realized in May when the Combine dropped the 9th Zhong Zhang Academy Cater onto Mara in what appeared to be a full invasion. The attack was really pro to prepare for a later invasion and training exercise for the Zhao Mech warriors. Korean ISF also wanted to gather data on this new mercenary unit, whom they assumed the Cater would destroy without difficulty. When the Cater landed, they met no resistance to attack and went like clockwork, with the instructors holding the Cater together as they traveled from agro center to agro center for a week, accepting surrenders as they went. Although they were just enough about the Kell Hounds to be aware, the Cater felt contempt for the mercenaries. 6 days into the invasion, dropship Lu blasted off the planet and sped for the zenith jump point and the waiting Karita jump ship Zhong. Broadcasting a message that they had mutinied, Lu's crew told the Somme that they expected the Kell Hounds to be destroyed. In return for safe passage to Glacier, they offered the dropships to the Cretans. The jump ship crew saw this as a golden opportunity. Students at the Zhang were bound to serve service in one of the caters until they earned their way out by an act of skill or bravery. Jump ship crews, however, seldom had their chance and often only matricated after 5 or 10 years of service aboard a quote student craft. They welcomed the loose surrender. It turned out to be a ruse, and the Kell Hounds captured their jump ship. Death of a prince. Mostly desolate place ravaged by war. Mallory's World's infamous the Glacier Campaign. I also did a video on the source book that kind of covers a little bit of that. Mallory's World isn't famous for the battles fought here. The long list of men and machines that never return from Mallory's World reinforces a vision of a graveyard world where the skeletons of the dead mechs and their pilots litter the landscape. The hand of a death lies heavy on this place. From Hell's Amble, Mallory's World 3013 to 16 by J. Mitchell, New Avalon Military Institute Press, 3018. Frequent raids to give the Draconis combat good picture of defenses Mallory's World, both in numbers and troops and reaction and patterns. The ISF became uneasy, however, when it suddenly lost track of a number of Federated Sons military units. Although the ISF did not know it, Prince Ian Davion was readying his troops for an invasion of Halistad Station, where he hoped to capture a huge new Karita warehouse. With the intention of learning where the missing Davion units were, the ISF persuaded the coordinator to invade Mallory's World. Prince Ion interrupted his planning to respond to the invasion, descending on the Combine troop in October 3 of 3013, barely 2 weeks after the Karita strike. His 4th Davion Guards faced swift competition from the 2nd Sword of Light, but broke the Karita siege of Coldersville by mid-month. The Prince then moved the 4th Guards into the planet's desert region to track down the 2nd Sword, relying on the 17 Avalon Hussars to keep House Karita's 24th Darien regulars off their back. Attempting one of their famous close assaults, the 17 Avalon Hussars ended up being mauled by the 24th regulars. Then they fell back, leaving Prince Ion's flanks open. Ian Davion, who had left 3 regiments in the hands of his brother Hans, refused to call up his own reserves. He wanted to leave them and committed to the strike at Halstead Station, and made this point very clear in a series of heated exchanges with his brother. When the prince pointed out the Halstead strike would relieve pressure on Mallory's World, Hans reluctantly agreed. In return concession, Prince Ian said he would ask for the nearest mercenary unit, which happened to be the Kell Hounds, back up his troops. It took the Kell Hounds 10 days to arrive, in which things had gone from bad to worse. 24th Darien regulars had slipped to the north and cut off the 4th Davion Guards from Mallory's temperate zones. Airdrops kept the 4th Guards supplied until a raid by the 24th heavily damaged the Guards' air support. As a result, the 4th Guards moved into the desert and began a desperate game of hide-and-seek with the 2nd Sword of Light. Ian Davion, after days of running battle in the labyrinth of desert plateaus and wadis, was trapped in a deep canyon that was narrowed to a point where only one mech could pass at a time. Knowing that the Kell Hounds were on their way, Prince Ian used his Atlas to hold off the 2nd Sword of Light. After defeating a series of 4 mechs, Prince Ian's Atlas faced a Warhammer Yorinaga Karita, commander of the 2nd, and was in this desolate place that Ian Davion bought his last battle. Before the Koreans could capture the prince's body, however, the Kell Hounds arrived after 2 days of near constant marching. They attacked the 2nd Sword of Light, while elements of the 4th Davion Guards recovered Davion's body. The Kell Hounds' arrow wing drove the Karita fighters from the sky, but this allowed the 2nd Sword to retreat. The Kell Hounds withdrew to Colderville along with the remnants of the 4th Davion Guards. In October, closed a cellmate on Mallory's World. For killing Prince Ian Davion, Yorinaga Karita was elevated to the rank of Taisa and given command of the 2nd Sword. the coordinator's own regiment. It was for this reason that Uriage, like all his predecessors, did not receive the rank of Taisho or general. After 3016, at the grace of the unit, the new Second Sword of Light commanders did receive the rank of Taisho in an effort to distance the coordinator from the scandal. Second Sword of Light was withdrawn from Mallory's world during this change of command. As a gesture of contempt for the Kell Hounds, the Krita High Command sent the 2nd Legion of Vega to help the 24th Daring Regulars keep their foothold on the world. The Battle of Halistead Station, Disgrace, Divided They Fall, Mallory World campaigns. This is a pretty significant campaign. So it boils down to a point where Uriage, Krita, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name again, and Morgan Kell fight a duel. And it's a winner-take-all kind of scenario. Something occurs, and there's a lot of debate over the years on exactly if this constitutes some mystical thing or some, quote, fantasy force thing that they tried to interject into Battletech. But for whatever reason, no matter how hard Uriage tried to target Morgan, he couldn't get a weapons lock on Morgan's mech. And he ends up overextending himself and overheating his Warhammer to the point his Warhammer shuts down. By this time, Morgan's out of ammunition, so by rights, Morgan still would have lost. And to show respect to his foe, Morgan manages to get his archer to bow and then tosses, and then leaves the battlefield. And Uriage recognizes this as an ultimate show of Bushido and is shocked and surprised that a mere mercenary could have that kind of chespa and knowledge of honorable combat. So he cedes the battlefield to the Kell Hounds. This does not go well with elements within the Second Sword, who challenge Uriage's mental capacity at that point, and Uriage turns and obliterates the person who challenges them, ordering that the second leave the field. He then proceeds to go and request to do seppuku and to atone for his failure to the coordinator. The coordinator refuses, and Uriage is stripped of his command and also goes into a monastery. Morgan is so shooken up by this conflict. He's not aware of all of what's going on the Dracona side, but he's still also basically dismantles the Kell Hounds as a regiment and disperses a large portion of them off on, quote, secret missions we don't know about until later. He then leaves a core group of individuals and capable commanders and a battalion's worth of mixed arms forces in the hands of his younger brother, Patrick, with the instructions to do his best. Patrick, they call this it's the disgrace on one side, and it's not the disillusion, what does it call it? The defection on the Kell sides. And the Kell's core people who were there really decided they don't want to talk about it, so they really it really messes with a lot of their heads and their psyches. So Patrick decides to make the Kell Hounds battalion the best damn mercenary battalion in the Inner Spirit, and they do a credible job at doing that. Says Morgan Kell's abrupt departure nearly destroys the battalion left behind. Patrick Kell, believing his brother not trusting with the command of a regiment, sank into depression, as did the heartbroken Salem Ward, who was Morgan's paramour. A command paralysis set in that would have destroyed the Kell Hound battalion, except the actions of 3 officers. Major Richard O'Sterin, Seamus Fitzpatrick held the unit together, and newly promoted Captain Daniel Allard uses his contacts with the Davion Court to get the early release from their contract. Morgan Kell's escape from the certain death at the hands of Uriage Krita had given him a premonition of death, the uneasy certainty he was fated to meet the Kretan again, and he knew he could not tell his brother or Ward, for they would take out after Uriage Krita themselves and probably die in the attempt to kill him. And Morgan's defection was motivated by the desire to keep his brother and lover out of trouble, the rest of his warriors alive in case he should return to the unit. They didn't know this. So, by their bootstraps. Once again, Patrick finally comes out of his funk and decides they're going to be the best damn mercenary battalion they can be, and they pursue to do this. So in this subsection here, it's called the Phantom Mech skill. Morgan and Patrick Kell and Yuriagi Kurita possess a special combination of genetics, training, and philosophy that gave them the ability known as Phantom Mech skill. Though little understood, this ability has allowed all three men to somehow block reception of their mechs by targeting computers or censored by both foe and friend alike. So for whatever reason, whatever this is supposed to be, it's supposed to be a rare thing. It's not intended as something that you can opt for as a player. I mean, you're really not supposed to be able to opt for this, except in extreme cases. Keep in mind, and this is also something that gets debated amongst role-playing games off and on over the decades. Player characters. And if you've never played the role-playing game, if you've never played the MechWarrior version of BattleTech, you still do the tabletop war games, but you're actually focusing on individual pilots, where you say this particular pilot has got a name, he's got all these stats, he's got all these skills, and these skills plug into his machine that gives him the ability to enhance his ability on the field. If you're taking that level, you are role-playing a character. You can make the debate all you want that you're not, but you are. You're in denial. And that is not my opinion. That's a damn cold fact. Like it, don't like it, I don't give a shit. I don't. Because that's just the way it is. That said, and it's an important consideration, they're called heroes or adventurers for a reason. These characters that are represented in a role-playing game, or in this version of the tabletop war game, or any other scenario that plays out in the video games too, stand out. There's something special and unique that makes them a little bit better or different or above par than the average person in that universe, in that world. So the average mech warrior, the average soldier, the average politician in BattleTech and in the Innersphere in mech warrior are just that. They're average. So if you have a player character, if you play or you represent these individuals and enhance them and improve them, they stand out just a hair more than everybody else. This is what sets them apart. This is what makes them the heroes or the anti-heroes or the aces of the whatever. It's a little thing, but it's an important contribution. We're not playing Joe Plumber here. We're not playing average Jane. You understand what I mean? We're not representing the average grunt unit. If you're representing your force as your military unit, good, bad, or indifferent, green or elite, to still set itself above the actual other forces that they meet. You might have a green mercenary lance with a little bit of extra fire, a little bit of extra skill than the average green line unit, but you still stand out in a different category than an elite line unit. Now the elite line unit is going to have better firepower, better skill sets, etc., etc. They're elite for a reason, but there's a chance, a greater than average chance, your unit has a chance to encounter that elite unit, counter it, spar with it, maybe even defeat it. You see, this is what makes it stand out. This is the sort of thing that makes the character stand out. And if I'm preaching about something, I might apologize. So we get into Souls Across on Sticks, various little missions, and then come back into, we get into the heart of the, this is why I had this book sitting laying here. We get into the heart of the Warrior Trilogy, and the Kell Hounds factor prominently in this series of books. And one of the encounters is Melissa Steiner is incognito. She's traveling to spend time with Hans Davion prior to their marriage, so they can get to know each other a little better. And to do this, she gets on a civilian passenger ship, dropship, and is traveling. And elements of various sources find out about it, and they manage to send an outfit to capture her. In-house Kurita, the intelligence services also uncovered that she's doing this and that somebody's going to kidnap her unit. And so under orders of Takashi Kurita, Yoriagi's reborn Genyosa, along with an ISF command, a company of special forces, is dispatched to this remote mining system on the border to capture Melissa Steiner. And about the same time, happenstance, or quote, circumstances, and circumstances are rarely random for a reason, the Kell Hounds jump into the same system and intervene at the nick of time. In the process of saving Melissa Steiner from unknown fates, as well as the possibility of disrupting the entire pending marriage with the would-be alliance between the Learned Commonwealth and the Federated Sons, Patrick Kell sacrifices himself in the process. When he dies, word gets back to his brother that Yoriagi has returned to the field, but also that his brother's died, and he then comes out of seclusion and calls in his far-flung former members of the original Kell Hounds regiment and reconstitutes them, and for a eventual face-off between Yoriagi and his Genyosha and the Kell Hounds and Morgan Kell, and then goes on through there. So anyway, we got our breakdown of our service timeline, and then our typical. Here's our bios. So Morgan Kell and Patrick Kell, and their information and their stats and a little bit of their back history. Salem Ward, who eventually ends up marrying Morgan, and they have some children. Cat Wilson, a couple of very special people who make some, you know, one of the things that we're back to that, what I just said earlier about what makes the player characters stand out, why they're heroes or adventurers, why they are a cut above the average of normal of a given universe. So this Merc unit, one of the things that makes this Merc unit have more oomph to it, more diversity to it, more options to it, is that it's made up of some pretty colorful people. In this case, we have two. Daniel Allard is the younger son of the head of Milo of House Davion. And later in this series here, it's his older brother Justin that becomes Justin Exene, the spy sent into the heart of the Compelling Confederation and the Chancellor's court, who does such amount of damage and troubleshooting during the Fourth Succession War, which I'm going to cover when I do a little bit of this video. Another character is this Genos Vadimir. This feller here has a very deep understanding of pirate jump points, interstellar travel, getting around, and has a lot of contacts. These combinations help the Kell Hounds out in quite a few scenarios. It's kind of like in the Grey Death Legion. They have their version of him too, and it's just one of those characters that just make and break and make things different. You're seeing Richard Ocean once again, really good infantry commander, capable, is a great instructor, and helps field and train a very good jump infantry unit that has a wide range of skill sets, including anti-mech combat. Another one of these things that make the Kell Hounds Merc unit stand out above the average mercenary unit. So we go on down the thing, and some various lesser characters, and we get the current roster for Mallory's world in 3016, and the makeup, and all the way through the regiment size, regiment options, and scenarios for playing out. Right, let's see. Because I'm not going to go through all these. There's plenty of them. There's no point in getting them all. All right. Let's see. I'm looking for a specific thing here. There's serious. Mech Warrior Scenario 1. Mech Warrior Scenario 2. Where am I? What am I? Alright, different encounters based on the novels. Alright, yeah, I guess I skipped over. Alright, so we got as the entire regiment as of 3013, and then the battalion, which would be 30, 28, whatever, 3029, right prior to the breakout of the Fourth Succession War. And then the reconstituted regiment, the battalion, and then the reconstituted regiment 3029. So anyway, the Kell Hounds, great unit, great stories. Like I said, read the novels. You will not regret reading the novels. Get this. If you get this in a PDF format, I don't know if they're available or not, but I highly recommend it. Once again, beautiful story, beautiful background, great example for anybody who's getting into the game system and wants to understand how to create, or what one way of creating their own mech command or mercenary command, so on and so forth. Anyway, this is Rick, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.